You know, oddly enough, I don't really think of this as big of a deal as it probably is. Like, the reason we're making this video is because everybody is talking about this in Vancouver. It's all over Sekeres and Price. They were talking about it on 650. There are tweets from popular Vancouver-based hockey people going out there discussing this idea, and it's like, to me, I don't really think it's that important, but, you know, we're talking about what people are talking about, so that's why we're making this video here today. Let's talk about Vancouver Canucks franchise defenseman Quinn Hughes. And, yeah, I'm gonna say that unapologetically, a franchise-caliber defenseman. He's good enough to be called that, right? I don't know. But the reason we're talking about Hughes is not because of anything he has done recently, but because of what he might be doing by the time the NHL season kicks off in October. You see, this was reported by Donnie and Dolly, or not Donnie and Dolly, I believe it was just Rick Dollywall on the Sekeres and Price show, where he was brought on to be a guest speaker, but what Rick Dollywall did was he had a conversation with Jim Rutherford asking the guy, hey, what's the direction of the D-core of this team? Why'd you guys not get any right-handed defensemen? Sure, signing Danny DeKeyser to a PTO was nice, but he's another left-handed guy. When it comes to right-handed depth on the team, sure, you have names, you have Schenn, you have Poolman, you have Myers, but this caliber of defense core is not particularly great. And so, when Dollywall went out there and asked Rutherford about the status of the right-handed D, the answer that Dollywall got was that there are a few players on the Canucks D-core who can play right who happen to be left-handed. No, we're not talking about Nate Schmidt, but we're talking about Travis Dermott, who has played on the right side before. Oliver Ekman-Larsson is a player who is able to play on the right side, and Dollywall went out there and said that the Vancouver Canucks were told by Quinn Hughes himself that Hughes wouldn't be opposed to the idea of playing on the right, too. Dollywall made it very clear, this is not the Vancouver Canucks going out there and asking Hughes, hey Hughes, you want to play on the right? It's Hughes actively telling the organization himself that it's a role that he could try to do. And now, with this in mind, we ask the question, how exactly will this affect the Canucks and their defense? Because, long story short, if we go over and look at this tweet from Cam Robinson, it kind of sums up what the results of this conversation could be. If Quinn Hughes could successfully transition to the right side, that would solve a major issue for Vancouver. It's risky business to put your best defender on his offside, but the payoff could be huge. Double bonus, it allows Jack Rathbone more flexibility to find a roster spot as well. There's a reply here that says not really, because then the left side looks horrendous. It's just shifting your problem from one side to the other. Two things, Cam Robinson goes out there and replies. It's far easier to procure a left-handed D, and they have more tangible options on that right side now. Number two, getting hold of a number one right-handed D is nearly impossible. And that's kind of the thing too, if you compare the left and the right side already just without Hughes, I'd say that talent-wise OEL is better than Myers. Now sure, Myers has the much better contract because it goes on for only one more season, OEL is locked on till forever, but he's a better player, I think, than the Giraffe is. I would go out there and say that I hope Jack Rathbone is better than Tucker Poolman this upcoming season, and if he is, I would not be all too surprised if that was the case. You want to talk about depth options? Hey, Travis Dermott, I feel, is a tad better than Luke Schenn is, although I do really like Schenn, so I might be a little bit biased there. But pretty much, if you had Quinn Hughes on the right, and he was able to play in that position properly, it does a number of good things for the distribution, I guess, of talent. This is what Cam highlights could be possible D pairings if Quinn Hughes was on the right. OEL Hughes, Dermott, Myers, Rathbone, Schenn, Burrows, and Poolman. And I kind of do like the way everything shapes up over there. Alex Burrows, my goodness, no, Kyle Burrows. That's how you know that I'm sick and that I've been delirious the past few days because, yeah, I'm making slip-ups like that. But Kyle Burrows is honestly not bad, and I definitely do like the profile that he brings as a member of the Canucks D-core as well, so it's a little bit more balanced out, this sort of D-core, than it is if Quinn is on the left side instead. And that point about Rathbone rings very true, that if Rathbone is able to be as good as we want him to be right away, I mean, the guy was so good at producing in the AHL last season, so if he's able to replicate that sort of dominance in the NHL right away, then if you have a first pairing of, let's say, Rathbone and Hughes, that would be super incredible to watch, and you're not going to have any of OEL, Hughes, or Rathbone get some ice time taken away from them because they have to make way, and you only have 3 left-handed defensemen per game. I would much rather have Quinn Hughes on the right side eating up a chunk of minutes than have him trying to split the load off with OEL and Rathbone. Take some minutes away from Poolman and give him to Hughes instead. I kind of like that idea a lot. Plus, just the overall difficulty of trying to improve your D-core by acquiring a number 1 right-handed defenseman. As Cam said, it's impossible. It's not every day a guy like Noah Dobson or a Cale Makar or an Adam Fox gets placed onto the trade block. Meanwhile, if you were to try to acquire, let's say, a regular, decently sized, competent left-handed defenseman, that would be pretty good. And so it's also a conversation of supply and demand, right? Right-side guys are obviously a lot more valued than lefties, and if Quinn Hughes can be a right-handed guy, or not a right-handed guy, but a right-side guy too, then we have ourselves a pretty interesting way of viewing the D-core next season. This is an article on Vancouver Hockey Now published by Rob Simpson, going over what Boudreau has to say about Quinn Hughes changing sides on the D-core. I think it all depends on who's able to play, Canucks head coach Bruce Boudreau told Vancouver Hockey Now. It's an idea. A lot probably would be indicated by it if Tucker Poolman can't play, and there's no indication that he can't right now. According to Vancouver Hockey Now, though, there also is no guarantee that the right-handed Poolman can play. We'll refrain from going into his personal history, yada yada yada. He's been going full bore, Bruce Boudreau said. I know that Quinn has been practicing on the right side at home, just in case that opportunity came up, Bruce added. And I think that's a really interesting part of it as well. If Quinn Hughes is already at home, practicing the right side, collecting pucks on dump-ins on the right side, and, receiving it on his backhand and everything, if he is already going through that process of learning the side, then I don't want the Vancouver Canucks to go out there and say that all the training that he did in the offseason in Michigan at home was for naught. Let the guy go out there and exhibit the skills that it was that he was able to pick up during the offseason. Let him go and prove to us that he did some good work this offseason. Because if he played a good chunk of his practice on the right, only for Bruce and company to tell him, nah, son, you're staying on the left, then I guess that's kind of some time wasted, right? I don't know, that's just me trying to go out there and validate everything that it was that Quinn Hughes ended up doing in the offseason, because if he's trying to play on the right and he's already practicing, why tell him no? This article on Vancouver Hockey Now goes over some other pairings. Without Poolman, you could have OEL Hughes, Dermott Myers, Rathbone Schenn, Burrows, and yeah, it's pretty much the same thing that Cam Robinson went out there and said. If you have Poolman, you could go Hughes, Schenn, OEL Myers, Rathbone, and Poolman with Dermott, Burrows, or somebody else as an extra, but to be honest, I kind of like Dermott. I would not be opposed to having him in the lineup, especially over a guy like Tucker Poolman, to be honest, but that's kind of just me. I really don't trust Poolman as much as I really want to, because I don't think he's that good, but he's got a year to prove me wrong, right? Down in the comments, though, all your thoughts about Quinn Hughes and the Vancouver Canucks and whether or not Hughes should, could, or would be placed on the right side. Do you want to see this experiment work? I think it would only really apply to 5v5 play, right? Because on the power play, it doesn't matter. Quinn Hughes is always at the top of the umbrella, just kind of manning the point, and he goes left to right whenever he wants. So I don't really think this would affect the special teams all too much, but I guess for 5v5 and where he aligns on the faceoffs, it would make a pretty big difference. But I have to go because I've really been holding in a cough the past few minutes here. Down in the comments all your thoughts about Quinn Hughes. I hope you enjoyed this video. Trolls 99. And bye.